or selling or lead generation, as the case may be, you also want to reflect this in the sales playbook, right? It's not a one size fits all. So it's not a document where if I produce one, say I'm selling for an organization or I'm generating revenue for an organization that is playing in the media space, and I create with my team members a sales playbook for that organization, and then I move from that organization to another organization in a different industry, say an organization in the financial service sector, right? The sales playbook, I cannot say, oh, I'll take the sales playbook we created for the media organization and take it to the financial service sector organization, and it just works there, right? No, it's something that is different for each market, industry, sales team, and you might require to customize it to address specific needs and challenges based on the industry that you're working or selling for and into, as the case may be, right? Why do we need a sales playbook? So it enhances sales efficiency. So one of the things you want in your sales team, or you want even as a salesperson, is being able to do things efficiently, right? So that you are not so you get into an organization as a salesperson and you get in there, but because the sales team does not have a sales playbook that houses their sales process, sales methodology, the tools that the organization use and all of that, you are then left to figure things out yourself, where you are then hitting your head on the wall and trying to figure things out yourself. But you want to be efficient. You want to hit the ground running, as the case may be, right? So if there is a sales playbook that can help you come up to speed in terms of learning about the product, learning about best practices, learning about the tools, the tech stack that you're using as a team. Are you using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, Apollo, what the CRM tool, say HubSpot, Airtable, whatever it is you're using, so that you can then learn and become better. It also helps, ensures consistency in your sales approach, right? I always use the analogy of the cake, right? If you're a caterer here, you would understand what I mean. I'm not much of a caterer myself. I do not even know how to make cake. But yeah, you know what I mean, that if you're baking, if you're a caterer and every time you bake a cake, you do it haphazardly, right? You just throw things anyhow, your cake will not have a form of consistency that you want it to have. So say you then have a recipe, you know that I do this step 1 before I go to step 2, before I throw in ingredient 3 and all of that. Sometimes you might tweak here and there, but because you have that step outlined, it helps you to be consistent in terms of the kind of cakes that you produce, right? The same thing happens in selling. So the sales playbook provides standardized processes, messaging, also training for new employees, ensuring consistent sales approach and alignment across your team. It doesn't mean that everybody will be robotic about it, that say because you have a cold call script on your sales playbook, then it means that everybody must follow that sales call script verbatim and say everything that is in it robotically, if there's a word like that, right? But what it does is give you a framework so that you then know that if I call someone as a salesperson, on a cold call, what is the first thing that I do? What is the first thing that I try to achieve with the first set of words that I say? Do I want to make them relaxed by probably building rapport, or just state value immediately to catch their attention? What is that thing? You can infuse yourself into it, or you know what the process is, as the case may be, right? It facilitates onboarding and training, like I've emphasized earlier, right? New salespeople get into, and if you've been doing sales for a while now, you would have this kind of experience where you get into a sales team. There's really nothing. Nobody is handing you anything and saying, this is what we've been doing, and help you to come up to speed, right? The other salespeople are busy trying to get clients in, right? If you get any form of onboarding, as the case may be, it might be from HR, where they do the company vision, mission, and core values, and all of that. But probably there is no specific document that someone can say, go into this document, or go into this, hand over that particular document to you and say, with this document, if you are able to go through it, I'm sure you would not only understand what we are doing in terms of our sales process, you understand the industry better, you understand, yes, it will take time for you to ramp up and then become better as time goes, but it allows you to learn faster than if it wasn't there and you were just allowed to figure things out yourself. So there are key elements of an effective sales playbook. So we have the prospecting aspect of it, we have the selling, we have the support, the system, and the team. So with the prospecting, you want to show your prospecting action plans. What are the things you do, right? How do you prospect? Are you in a team that marketing generates marketing qualified leads for you, and then you go ahead to close, to chase those deals to close? I always advise salespeople that even if your marketing team is getting leads for you, right, you really should not sit down and keep waiting for them, right? You also want to go out there and prospect yourself. So how do you prospect? Are you prospecting through cold emails? Are you prospecting through cold calls? Are you probably prospecting through active referrals, asking for referrals actively from your already existing customers, right? The sales playbook wants to also, you want to, in the prospect aspect of it, in the prospecting aspect part of it, you want to also talk about targeting. Who are you targeting? If you are B2B, which I believe most of us will be, right? Which department is your product solving a problem for? If you're selling a financial product, you probably will be selling into the finance team. If you're selling a marketing product, let's say you are working for a media company, you're selling into the marketing team, right? Who are these people you're targeting? How do you get your leads, right? Do you use LinkedIn Navigator to know who those people are? Probably use Apollo to then get their email address. Are you doing sequencing on Apollo, right? So that you don't have to send out those mails one by one, and all of that. How do you go out, handle your outreach, as the case may be? When it comes to selling, what is the sales process, right? What is our sales process? After prospecting, do you have a qualification meeting, call with the prospects where you find out what their needs are? After that, what do you do next? Do you then do a presentation, and in that presentation you do a how-to and a demo, as the case may be, right? What's the value proposition for each product, right? I've seen a situation where you get into a company, even though they've been operational for a while, and you're asking what's our value proposition, and nobody's telling you anything, and then you have to go figure that out yourself, right? That's not a very good situation to be in. So you don't want the new people coming in to be in that situation. So you want to outline what the value proposition is. How do you run a meeting, right? Do you, in setting up that meeting, send out the agenda to the prospect so that they know what the talking points are? Do you, a day before or some hours before that meeting, send out a message to the prospect to confirm that meeting? When you get into that meeting, right, how do you then run the meeting? Is there an introduction first, and then you ask open-ended questions to get them talking and things like that? How do you run a meeting? You want to have that outlined. Success stories, right, of customers who have bought from you. Tests are good, videos are way better. I learned from Brian Tracy reading Advanced Selling Strategy a long time ago, when he said that what you should do is get those testimonies in binders, and then you should bind them together and carry them along, right? This is the digital age. Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you want to show them and say, this is what so and so person talks about us. Name call, especially for your sweetheart customers, those that you know will say the right things about you, right? What are the common objectives you noticed as a team selling the product? Do people object to your price because the product that you sell is the most expensive in the market? How do you answer that objection? How have you as a team gone about to answer that objection? You want to put it there so that the new person that is coming in, or whoever is a member of the team, when they face such objection, is not something that will then derail the sales because they don't know how to answer it. They want to go ahead to know what to say. And that, by listing all of this, you can see why the document has to be a dynamic, ever-changing document, because you can be answering an objection in a particular way, right? And say a salesperson in your team takes a course on objection handling, or reads a book on objection handling, and try out what they learned in that book or in that course and see a good result. They can then come in that document to say, oh, this is something I learned too, and this is how I think we should go about it. You can debate it back and forth, and when you agree on it, especially if you've tested it out, every other member of the team or some few members of the team have tested it out and see that it works, you can then include it there, right? And when it comes to support, how do you handle accountability, right? Pricing, implementation, operational support. What are the industry rules and regulation? Onboarding and ramp up materials for new hires. You want to have them in there. When it comes to system, what are the best practices in each of the other ones in terms of prospecting and the likes? What is your organization data policy, right? How do you manage that, especially if you are in an industry that is heavily regulated, right? You want to probably provide, and none of this is cast in stone. You can remove some of this and add some other things, right? You can start with the basic of saying some part of the prospecting, selling, support, and the likes, and then the document grows as the team gets better and you have a better understanding of your product. So this is me checking again to find out if I've not been speaking to myself. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, so you want to have your organizational chart so that people in the team understand what the organizational chart and the reporting lines are. Discussion boards and forums, success stories and case studies like we've talked about, with selling, right? Recommended improvements also, right? How do you then create a sales playbook? Let's talk a little about that. So you want to define your buyer persona. So this word has been used so much that a lot of people think it's cliche, right? In terms of thinking, oh, it's just a buzzword, it's just a word that is being thrown out there. I will go a little deeper and say, apart from your buyer persona, another thing you want to create, two other things you want to create is your buyer metrics. I learned this by reading the book Snap Selling by Gio Conrad, right? That's the author's name. Snap Selling. So you want to create a buyer metrics, and you also want to create a buyer journey. Buyer metrics is a broader part of buyer persona, right? It goes deep into talking about what affects that particular role in terms of internal and external, who do they report to, who are their peers, and the likes, right? Buyer journey talks about what your buyers do from the time they become aware of the problem, right, that they are trying to solve, or the need for a product like yours, through to the point where they will buy from you. When you do the buyer's journey, you can then plug in different strategies based on that journey, right? So you want to create a detailed persona, create details description of your buyer personas to guide your sales rep on how to approach potential customers, right? You want to outline your sales process. You define each stage of your sales process from prospecting to close. Some of the common stages include things like lead generation, qualification, presentation, like I said earlier, objection handling, and then you close. You also want to list the activities and tasks required at each stage. Another thing I'll add that I didn't add to this is you also want to outline exit criteria for each of those stages, right? What is the thing that can happen for you to go from qualification to presentation? What is the thing that can happen or for you to go from presentation to then call for your prospect to ask you questions, right, in terms of raising objections? And I must say that objection is not necessarily that a client or a prospect raises an objection does not necessarily mean that they do not want to buy or they are saying your product is bad, right? It could just mean that they need more clarification, or they are in that stage where they are not sure yet. The way you handle that objection can then allow them to buy from you or not. So you also want to develop sales strategies, tactics, and methodologies. So there are different kind of methodologies. There's the consultative selling and all of it. A lot. If you go online and you Google sales methodologies, I'm sure you will see a whole lot, right? One thing I recommend here is, if you can, go on LinkedIn Sales Academy, take the course Revenue Operation. If you are a salesperson, it will really help you a lot in understanding some of these things that I'm talking about. So so you want to list out the best practices for each tactics, such as how to personalize communication or handle objections, right? Like I mentioned before. For the personalization of communication, right? The cold email you're sending to a CEO, what is important to them is how to make more money, how to reduce cost, how to increase market share, is different from the cold email you would send to a COO who is more concern about operational efficiency, right? How does you want to ask yourself, how does your product help each and every one of these persons? Because one thing you don't want to do is just reaching out to just one particular person in an organization. You want to have different touch points, but you want to reach out to those touch points with messaging that aligns with what they themselves, or what their role is saddled with when it comes to what their own KPIs and what they are trying to achieve. So you want to compile your product information. What are the features? What are the benefits? You want to list your products and services, featured and benefits, focusing on how they solve the customer's problem, right? You want to do a competitive analysis, right, with some of your closest competitors, right? And you want to list it there and say, this is where we are strong, this is where they are stronger, so that when a sales rep is in front of a prospect and they are trying to sell to that prospect, and the prospect says, how are you different from this particular other provider, they are able to, one thing I always say is, don't bash any competitor. You shouldn't go there and say, oh, no, their product is rubbish, it doesn't make any sense. Well, one thing I know is, if you're saying that, you might actually be shooting yourself in the foot. So a constructive way to do that is to constructively highlight where you are stronger, right? Where your own product can provide more value. What is your unique selling point, right? What's that advantage that you have over your competitor? You want to provide content and resources, things like a sales script, templates for cold emails, cold calls, presentation templates. You do not want your salesperson to have a presentation and then they are running around to try to find how to piece presentations together, right? I've seen this happen a lot. I know personally that if that happens to me, which it has happened quite some time, it always is not something I'll get it done, but it's not something I really want to always do. I wish I had that already, and then I can plug and play and go ahead to do my selling. So case studies and testimonials, you want to have them in there also. You also want to list out your sales tools, the sales tools and technologies that you're using. What are the CRM, your sales enablement tools? You want to list them out so that your team can track their leads with your CRM. If you are working for a company that cannot afford to pay for a CRM tool, there are ones you can use for free, at least the basic features of them. And with HubSpot, you can use the basic level where you can come up with a sales process, and then you can move your leads from one process to another. You can create tasks, you can leave notes, right? And other tools like Apollo, like I mentioned, with the free version, you can create sequences and then add leads to that sequence, those sequence, right? You also want to provide access to training materials. So you want to compel your team and say, if you've taken any training that you find useful, let's add it to this document, right? So that someone else can also go through those training and also get that value that you got, right? So doing this will help you. It doesn't mean you can't create competition in your team, but it will be a healthy competition where everybody's helping each other to grow by contributing to this particular document that is helping all of us to grow, while they are also bringing their own individuality into the job, as the case may be. So you also want to put in what the goals and the matrices are. For the sales team in that document, right? Training and development, onboarding program, create an onboarding program for new sales reps that includes training on sales, on the sales playbook, product knowledge, and sales skill. as the case may be. Then you have to also, like I said earlier, regular review and updates. You want to regularly review your sales playbook with the team. It's not a static document. It's not a document that once you've done it, it's done, and then you won't go back to look at it again. You also always want to go back and check it, review, update it, and put in new strategies, market change, sales performance data, as the case may be. Thank you so much. I hope that's not too short. I'll take questions here if there are any. Hello.
Thank you very much for that presentation. And it was really insightful. Thank you very much. So if you have questions, please just indicate by raising your hands, and then we'll bring you up to. All right. So while we wait for people to get their questions together, right?
Okay.
Again, thank you for this session, Christopher. Okay. So talking about the sales playbook, right? How can one make it as less time consuming as possible? Because one of the things you notice creating a sales playbook,
I didn't get
you
that.
can now spend so much time doing. Can you hear me now? Can you?
Your line is breaking. I don't know if it's my network or can other people hear her very well.
Can anyone else hear me, please? Let me confirm whether it's my network.
I can hear you both, though.
Oh, okay. So I think it's mine then. Please go ahead.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Okay. So just to be clear, Christopher, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you very much. So I was saying, while we wait for people to get their questions together, how do you maximize your time while creating a sales playbook? Because we've established that this is very important. This sets the direction for your sales processes and your methodologies, and it helps the team know how to go about what, right? It provides guidance. So how do you create that in such a way that you're not wasting so much time and your team members are not wasting their time, keeping in mind that they have to fill in their CRM, do their normal tasks, monitor leads? How can they do all of that and still, save time?
Oh, okay. Like I said earlier, you want to automate some of the sales tasks that you have, right? So if normally you would spend 2-3 hours sending out cold emails, maybe you want to automate that and use a tool like Apollo, or even ordinary, if your company is using a Google Suite, even ordinary yet another mail merge, right? That's YAM, right? Where you can send out the mails in bulk, right? And not having to do it one by one, right? If the entire team agrees that this is a document that is very, very important, why not? We can all decide to allocate an hour each, or even 30 minutes, as the case may be. Give a timeline and say we want this document to at least contain XYZ within 1 month, and then we can then continue from there. And you can also break it down weekly and say, this week, this is what we want to put in it. These are the first set of things we want to put in it. Everybody bring out, say, an hour, 30 minutes daily, go in there, and work on it, right? So it just becomes one of those other things that you do on a daily, right? But one thing that then helps everybody drive towards that goal is understanding the importance of that document, understanding that this is a document that will not only help us, will not only help new hires, right? But we also help us, each and every one of us, tremendously, because in that document we are then able to share knowledge. We are able to bring each and every one of our knowledge together and come up with something that we all can look at and say, yes, this is a true reflection of, say, our sales process, or this is a true reflection of, say, our value proposition. So that's what I will recommend. For every time I've had to do it, that is how I've gone about it with my team members. We bring out time in the day. Right now, where I am is something we are working on, right? I didn't start it. It's already in the organization. I didn't start it. I came in, I met it, right? And then I'm part of the entire team making it better, right? And because I also want to make it better, I go in there every day or every other day and check things, read things, learn more. And as I'm doing that, I'm seeing things also that I'm like, oh, okay, based on my experience, maybe this doesn't work again. And then I'm leaving comments there, and whoever is in charge will then talk about it, and we can then implement it into the document. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, that was very clear. That was very clear. So everyone, like we've established, a sales playbook is literally, if you permit me to say, a sales Bible, right? So it's necessary to have. If you do not have that in your organization at the moment, can everyone still hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So it's a must-have. If you don't have that at your organization, it means that that's something that needs to be done. If you have that in your organization at the moment, again, like Christopher said, is a document that requires constant updating because the market changes, trends come, sales processes evolve. So it's a document that needs to be constantly updated, right? If you have questions on how you can update your current sales playbook or how you can create a new one, if you have to, or if you're in the position to within your company, please get your questions ready. You can raise your hands and then we'll take your questions. While we're still waiting for people to ask, oh, thank you. Adekoyejo, you can go ahead.
All right. Hi, Christopher. Thank you very much for this session. So my question is, in this industry, you've been in this industry long enough, or from my experience anyways, there is a lot of sales are done via relationships and not more of having like a playbook or having a formula. So there are even your product may not even be the best in the market, but because you have a relationship with the CEO or your company has a good relationship with the CEO, you just get the deal and stuff like that. So how do you balance having a formula, like having a playbook, and then other things that may not be in that formula or that playbook that may also affect your sales?
Okay, so thank you so much for that question. And this is what I'll say, right? Yes, from my experience, I've had, in fact, I have been part of a sales team where someone will say to me, he says, all this cold email you're sending, these things don't work. What works is know someone, talk to them, they'll push you in front, and then you sell. Well, cold emails have worked for me. They've worked a lot everywhere I've gone, from Seamless HR to TechPoint. A lot. I've brought in deals worth millions and hundreds of millions using cold emails and cold calls, and coming up with scripts and refining them and asking myself those questions in terms of what is important to this person, right? One thing to consider is this: if you know person A, as especially in this economy where we are now, it's no longer business as usual. Investors are no longer bringing out money like they used to, where you say the CEO is not bothered in terms of saying, oh, just buy it, give them money, doesn't matter, we'll get another one. An investor will give us money, another money. Now everybody is counting naira and kobo. Everybody's saying, I need something that provides value for me, right? And if that's the game, right, then you had better be speaking value, right? Yes, what you just said, relationship selling, is a methodology. It is. It's purely a methodology, and it happens in different ways. I can be on LinkedIn and I want to. I've been sending a cold email, and I've used this before, and I've been sending a cold email to someone, and the person is not responding. The person is my connection on LinkedIn. I send them a message on LinkedIn. They are not replying. But I check our mutual connection, and then I see that there is a friend I went to the university with who knows him. I reach out to that friend and I send the friend a message, say on WhatsApp, and say, do you know so and so person? And the person says yes. And I say, can you put me in front of that person? And the person says yes. And the person puts me in front of that person. Even when the person puts me in front of that person, I still need to sell value. I still need to make sure that the product or the service I'm providing brings value to the table. If not, right, I can get in, right, through sentiment. But if that product or that service doesn't give value at the end of the day, I'll get out as fast as I got in. Because at the end of the day, it's value that matters, right? Except that person wants to kill their company, where they just bring you in and they just keep giving you money, right? Referral is another form of relationship selling, where I have a customer and I want to leverage on the relationship that they have. So I always tell salespeople, actively ask for referrals. Don't wait on your customer to be the one to say, oh, I have someone for you, right? One of the companies I worked at, a particular customer that came in early when I joined the company referred me to more than 10 companies, and that I sold to, and they all bought, right? And not because I just sat there and I was waiting. I reached out to him constantly and I said, boss, how far? How are you using the product? How is it going? He'd be like, this on a platform, it makes sense. I'd be like, oh yeah, now who are the people? Can you give me five people that you think can buy? He'd be like, okay, let me get back to you. He said, let me get back to you. I'll tell him, boss, I'll actively follow up on this. So he gives me consent and I actively follow up on that, right? And he sends me numbers and I call those people, because the person they know recommended you is an easier sell for you, right? You've broken the first barrier of not being familiar, right? You'll be able to build rapport easier than if it was a cold outreach. But all of these things we just mentioned, whether it's the relationship selling, they are all methodologies. You want to think around them and also add them in that document. If I'm a salesperson and I join your team and I look at your sales playbook, and one of the methodologies you have there is relationship selling, and I can read it and see how that step goes, I will learn it and then I can implement it. But if I don't see it, I'm left to keep guessing and say, will it work here or won't it work? I don't know if that answers your question, Kwejo.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So if I get you correctly, what you said is that we should also include the relationship selling into our playbook. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much. My second question is, now if you've been in this ecosystem long enough, you would understand that most of the talents, especially in the no code or non-technical talents, we are always required to be multi-potentialites, like do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So in one of my previous employments, we were building a product, and it was the sales team that chose the name of the product. We advised on the UI and UX of the product. We worked as PMs customer support, everything. We actually do everything. Now, I'm at this point, yeah, I'm at this point in my career where I have a dilemma on whether to focus only on sales and like take only sales related courses, or like do product dive, do product marketing courses, do different courses, and also considering the fact that these courses are expensive. One of the things that you mentioned that I picked from your presentation was that you do a lot of studying, like you do a lot of courses, and then even YouTube and some other people that you follow, like Brian Tracy. So what would you advise? Should I like focus only primarily on sales, or I should also delve into like other areas in the tech ecosystem?
Okay, so I've taken courses and read books and watched videos on, say, marketing, revenue operations, growth marketing, and the likes. But wherever I go, I always try my best to make sure that they know that my core is selling, right? That's my core. And I can't remember when I chose that as a core, but that is what I chose as a core, right? For most of us, we will not only be salespeople, we will be business people. That's the way I see myself. I see myself as a business person. So I'm saying, how do I understand the entire business and say, how does the entire business run? From the selling aspect of it, which is my core, to how does marketing work, right? To how, say, finance. I took some courses on basic finance in terms of the basic accounting course on, I think, edX, right? If I'm not wrong, right? You want to understand that, but it's basically a personal thing. What is that thing, that one that you think has the highest potential for you, that you want to do and then become successful at? Yes, when I'm putting projects in, and that's why I was laughing, because I've been in that situation too, where when you even complain, they will tell you this is a startup, you do everything. And then you're like, okay. But one question I always ask is, and I keep asking every time, especially to whoever I'm reporting to directly, is, what is that thing? Because let's be sincere, most of the startups do not even have a defined way of measuring your work, as it were, in terms of KPIs and all of that, right? But I always ask, what is that one thing that you would like me to do, that if I do and do it very well and I bring in results in that thing, that you think I have done a very good job? And most times they'll be like, go and bring money. Right? And if you tell me to go and bring money, then when you're dragging me to other things, I can go back to that conversation to say, boss, this is where I am focused on at the moment, right? And that is what I really, and show you the work I'm doing, right? I won't say there is a one way of answering that question and say, oh, this is what you should focus on and that is what you should focus on. Each one has its own potential and has what it brings it on the table. I might tell you sales because my core and what I have done for over 7 years now is selling, right? But it doesn't mean that marketing or growth, it's not also very lucrative. But in terms of you saying, this is what I do, right? And this is what I'll do. In the job interviews also, you also want to ask those questions in terms of saying, what will this person really, really be judged on? Especially if you check the job description and it has a lot of things that you are going to be doing, right? You want to ask, if this person succeeds in the next 3 months, right? When we come to that next 3 months, what's that thing that person would have achieved that you look at and say, oh, this person has done well? I'm skeptical to say if that answers your question, but that's how it comes to me, and I don't know if that's good enough.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, thank you very much for that, Christopher. Dan Gold has a question, but before he goes ahead, I would like to add one or two to your question, Adequajo.
Correct.
So regarding what to eventually settle for, my advice is that as you grow in your career, niche down. And the reason I have this opinion is because, first off, when you take startups as an example, startups are optimizing for agile methodologies. They need somebody that can do everything. So when they're starting up, they get a salesperson that will do marketing, and you do customer support, and you do everything. But you notice that even those startups, as they start to grow, they would hire experts who have niched down in their field to come and lead you. That is what they would do. But when they're starting out, because they're starting out in an agile way, they want to get the best value for the lowest money because that is what they can afford at that time. A generalist is always a go-to. But as you start to advance in your career, the advice I'd give is focus on where you flourish, right? If you're flourishing in tech sales, focus there. If you're flourishing in marketing, focus there. And some of the things that would help you make that decision is study the opportunities for growth. Before I decided to settle for tech sales, I wanted to be a product manager. And at the time I wanted to be a product manager, I had no idea what they did. That title just sounded very fancy. And I was like, this thing suits my personality. This title just sounds fancy. And I made some research on what they did, but I had not experienced it firsthand. But then when I got into tech sales, and I was able to do my research on product management, how it was, and I also compared the opportunities for growth for tech sales. And I realized, oh, you can grow to this extent. One of the things that helped me make my own decision was I compared the salary at the years of experience I was. So I spoke to my friends who were product managers at my stage then, and they were comfortable with, comfortable talking salaries. And I realized, oh, we're earning about the same thing. And if I'm on a sales role, earning commission, I would be earning even more. I was optimizing for money. So I was like, I'm not going to be broke, so that's good. I mean, for me, that settled it. And since I already had head starts in tech sales, I settled in it. And the period I started to niche down was when everything started to fall into place for me. Everything. So I would say focus on where you're flourishing, where you enjoy, and what you have at the moment. And then niche down, because as you grow, companies want experts in their field, not just generalists. They want generalists when you're starting out. So yeah, I think that's my 2 cents to that. Okay.
That's great. Thank you so much, Dara. Please, Christopher, if it's not so much of a bother, I would appreciate if you could drop some of the resources you've used. Maybe the books, resources, and courses that you've studied, maybe on the Slack group.
Okay,
all right,
I will.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
We're going to share, Adequajo, we're going to share the resource that he has put out today. We'll also leave a link for you to connect with him on LinkedIn. I'm not sure Christopher will be on, Christopher is on our community, but to be glad to have him
I
on.
am.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, then you could get your materials as requested. So thank you very much, everyone. Dan Gold, please go ahead with your question.
Well, I don't have a question. What I wanted to do was to contribute to this conversation of this sales versus branching out. I think, like you mentioned, you worked at the startup, and for startups, basically, are looking for generalists, right? Not only like you're not going to be the only sales person. You're not going to do only like the sales job, but you'll be required to do marketing or some other things like that. So is this debate about generalist versus specialist? The truth is that in this climate, you just have to be a generalist. That's what I believe. But being a generalist means that you have to get skills that align with what you do, which is sales. Sales is getting in revenue. If you go on LinkedIn, a lot of the salespeople are good writers. So that is content marketing, right? That's another skill. And then you add maybe understanding of product, maybe, like, so again, the idea is to learn as much as possible about those other things, but as a rule, you pick 2 or 3 other skills that complement your sales skills, because the whole idea of a salesperson is to get money. So that's my contribution.
All right, thank you so much, Dangold.
Thank you very much, Dangold, for that contribution. If anyone else has questions or you have a contribution, please raise your hands so that we can take them. We'll be leaving soon, but thankfully they will not be kicking us out today like they did for the last meeting. If you were on the last session, you understand what I'm talking about. So yeah, we're good. But then please, people that were there, they know what I'm talking about. So please, if you have any contribution to make before we go, before we call it a night, please raise your hands and then we could take them before we leave. All right, so I'll take that as a no. Thank you everyone for your time. Thank you very much, Christopher.
Thank you, guys.
Please, before you go, I'm going to share the link to join the Slack channel if you're not already on it. I would also share the link to connect with Christopher on LinkedIn. There's the link to join the Slack channel on the chat box. Please join the Slack channel if you're not already on it. And then please give me a minute. All right, got it. So yes, please, I can also follow Christopher, connect with him on LinkedIn, right? Like I said, he's a published sales expert. So he has a lot of knowledge when it comes to sales and the things that relate to sales. Maximize that relationship. Thank you everyone for your time. Really appreciate you being here tonight. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Christopher.
Bye.
Thank you, Christopher.